What is up, my people? Welcome back to the channel for another album review. I'm your boy Naseem the Dream. If you're new to the channel, just go right on ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell as well to always keep notified on my newest content. And today I'll be reviewing the new Perfume Genius album, Ugly Season. This is the latest installment of Michael Aldern Hadreas, aka Perfume Genius's Ugly Season. For those who are not familiar with Perfume Genius, Michael is a 40-year-old art-pop singer, songwriter, and musician out of Des Moines, Iowa. Best known for his writing material coming based off of his personal experiences of domestic abuse, his struggles with Crohn's disease, and the dangers of being gay in modern society. Perfume Genius over the years has constructed a sum total of 6 studio records, with a couple of them becoming some of art pop's most acclaimed records in the genre. But now receiving this brand new 6th studio LP, which now focuses in a direction of experimental pop. Diving right into the intro track, we already feel involved in this encompassing dark aura that are follow along with some organs driving in the intensity into a blind direction. Once this all collapses in the track, it enters these pianos that show off the elements of gentle soothing processing that can simply be described as a lullaby of a tone of music. Then concluding into this crescendo into the track of rising ambient pads, zipping the track shut, preparing for the following track, Herem, which I can briefly describe to possess some of those same traits that we heard from Dear Leica's music from her last record, The Perfect Mind. I feel the same similarities when it comes to the operatic singing and haunting tones onto the vocals, but with the instrumentation, that's where this really differs on here. This is more stroked backward with some flute passages and strings emulating a setting that reminds me of an artsy film. This is one that still throws ideas into the mix of different sounds that adds a longevity and beauty to its attention. For me, the track Teeth is the one that really sticks to my memory with the most tasteful and delicate songs on this entire list, as it is exceedingly beautiful and building in this drop-dead gorgeous selection of sound. The singing adds up to immaculate measures of moments that are backed up beautifully with various bells, bass lines, and string sections that I feel mold the track into a deeply visual experience that glorifies the sensation of playing this track. There's a various amount of sound design choices that really try to differentiate what they really do when it comes to the sound expansion of what they do with the effects. Like on the track Pop Song is already coming in with some ping pong effects panning in on this 8-bit chopped up synthesizer with a touch of delay that constructs itself into a pop structure kind of song, if it's not already obvious based off the title. I will mention though, I do really feel like this track is the one that kind of derails me from my experience of where I'm already at in this album, just due to how awkward the transitioning felt. But I still do like a lot of what the track has to offer with its features and its production and the techniques that it uses. And I feel like the 5th track, Scherzo, tries to pull us back into that initial sonic familiarity. But the most simplest way I can describe how I interpreted this song is that it kind of just feels like some piano music that just kind of feels out of place. That sure is a very interesting piece to offer into the material, but it still just feels out of place here. For the title track, we now lay into some experimental reggae that it goes on that almost has this pinpoint exactly where my opinions stand. As we continue on from here, I still feel like my experience becomes even more derailed and even a bit more built up with the confusion in me on the title track, because now we're laying into more of the experimentation, but this time with some more reggae influences onto the beat. There are moments on here in the mix that had me curious, but I have to admit I was also equally as confused with the correlation to the sonic nature of the record. It's just starting to feel like it's totally slipping me into a totally different idea that's almost separate from this whole experience. There's this western on the track that explores dance music coming from the song Eye on the Wall. I feel like at this point with the execution, it is starting to make a little bit more sense because it's starting to play in with the more random influences playing in and turning out. I also felt like this track was trying to slowly transform into some kind of ambient piece of prog rock. And then we get into Photograph, which samples more displays of art pop that dabbles lightly into synth pop as well, with the song's melodies also keeping that soft mellow tone into the vocals. For Hellbent goes on to a full industrial influence with fluttering into droning noise under this industrial crescendo. The track also progresses farther into its evolutionary process, similar to an influence I find to come from some sort of Pink Floyd creation. But I wouldn't say this track completely gathers all of my attention, where it would have been better if this was somewhat rethought or rearranged into the list. So now I want to get my verdict out there by stating that my first run through this record, I felt like these songs held such great quality and significance of my experience of this LP. I do feel the same going through my second, but I also would say my experience feels completely different. So my perspective started to change after my second listen when I got to actually sit down and actually absorb everything that this record is indulging in. And yeah, I still really feel like at some point in here, the record just totally splits off. And I don't mean like quality wise, I mean more of the ideas feel separated. These feel like two entities in their own. Its prologue sets this tone that is in this kind of melodrama that pulls the image of something out of a thriller like an 824's Under the Skin. And if you're familiar with that film, I hope you can figure out on your own which scenes I refer to when it comes to the beginning portion of this album. But I can't get over how deliberately different I feel when I get past this point. Like, it almost feels like I actually fall through the floor into a completely different reality, which could be a pretty cool and trippy experience in a way. I just don't think the transitioning was well made enough for me to be prepared for that, because it only builds up on my confusion. That's where I don't really click with the curiosity for the rest of the album. Are there striking moments? Yes, but just not in the way where you're first initially being introduced. And there's plenty of moments where artists try to throw you off into their life settings or even on their LPs that worked, but it just felt way too separate. It was like in that moment where you're trying to understand a plot of a film, and then when you get to the ending, you're just like, I don't really get it. But for the most part, I think there is a bunch of great moments onto the record, plenty of highlights, great instrumentation as well, and many mind-boggling, enchanting memories that will get me to consider to put this record very high up into my list at the end of the year. But with that said, I'm gonna give Perfume Genius's Ugly Season a 74%. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed, go and like, share, comment down below what you thought of the record and what you want me to review next. And if you're not already, subscribe to the channel. Down in the description, you see all the separate tracklist ratings I have for the album, more videos, and also the links to my social media accounts, so you keep up with me on the daily. And I'm gonna catch you in the next one.